I got to thinking, going to be a little bit of language in this story. I'm sorry, but I got to tell you exactly how it happened. Nothing real bad, but anyway, the year was 2012, and I was in a place called Louisiana Teen Challenge. That's a drug rehab. It is. I was there for a year. I did my time for a year, found Jesus there. But this is about one of the situations that you see when you're in rehab sometimes. We were in a place called Gina, Louisiana. At the Super Center down there. You ever been to Walmart or the Piggly Wiggly or your local grocery store, and you'll see folks out there with a table set up like that, taking donations, giving out flyers. That's what we were doing. You try to build money for the program. People donate money. You talk to them. You may pray with them. I mean, I enjoyed it. I like working with the public. I love to talk to folks. And we were in front of that Walmart, that big Super Center down there. And there's some folks coming in and out of there now. And what drew my attention was this older fella on a cane. Now, he wasn't the nicest thing in the world. He just wasn't. He wasn't real friendly. But older folks, I tend to give a pass to. I was sitting there at a white table, had a polo pair of shorts, and he walked up to me. And he said, "Son, I need you to go in there and page Mrs. Cromwell." I said, "Sir, I don't work here. I can't just go in there." He just, and he staggered off with his cane, walked off, went out of sight, talked to some more people. A few minutes later, he approached me from the front. I can see this happening in my mind. He was a bigger fella. He came back over there, and by this time I was standing up. He walked up to me. I don't think he knew it was the same person. He said, "Son, my wife is in this store shopping. Her name is Mrs. Cromwell, and I need you to go get her." And I said, I can't. And then an associate came out, and I told her, and she kind of yeah-yahed. Didn't give him no satisfaction. And this kind of aggravated him. So he turned and sat down on a bench right by the door. When you go out that door, there was a bench on the left up against that wall over there. Well, I went back over there and sat down. And about 10 minutes later, he got up and walked to the sliding doors. Those doors at Walmart, they're open for you like you're out there. Stood in front of it and took his cane and began to hit the door. Bam! Bam! I can't be more serious. This drew my attention. It wasn't my business, but I had to know what was happening. So I approached the man. I said, "Whoa, what are you doing?" And the old man turned around and leaned into me, mad. He said, "I need my wife, Mrs. Cromwell, because I have shit all over myself." My God, he was just like this. And I was just like the Matrix, like that right there. Excuse the language, that's exactly what was said. I'm just telling you. So this time, I walked inside, and I found an associate up there by the service desk. I said, "You have got to page this woman. He has doo-dooed all over himself and is beating the door with a cane." By this time, the security guards out there talking to him. They're paging Mrs. Cromwell over the phone, loudspeaker like that. He goes back out and sits in a car, I think it was like a Ford Explorer. About 5 minutes later, one of them little scooters, you hear it coming down the sidewalk, like that. And it's this little old lady. She drives up beside me and says, "Have you seen my husband?" I said, "You must be Mrs. Cromwell." She said, "I am. They said my husband needs me." He was parked right over there in a handicap spot with about 10 dogs in that thing just barking. He throws that thing in reverse and takes off backwards and pulls up by the curb. He is just covered in doo-doo. And I am just, what is happening? And she's got all her groceries in that basket. They ain't in a bag. They open the hatch on that Ford Explorer, and it won't stay up, and they've got a pole holding it up. Well, she starts loading her groceries. He don't want to get out them dogs just barking. She's a little old bitty lady, y'all, all feeble. So I go over and start helping her load the groceries. Here, I'll help you, doggy, like that. She said, I got it, sugar. It's okay. And finally, she was just about done. And I walked back over. I said, okay, and went back over and sat down. And I heard something go boom like that. And she had knocked the pole out from under that darn hood like that, and it had fallen down on her. And all you could see was the back of her legs kicking out behind that thing like that. As he started to drive off with her like that, I jumped up, knocked my chair out, and started, hey, hey. Finally, he stopped as she started slipping out of the back of it. She got her senses about her, got that door closed, and walked back around and got in the passenger seat as the dogs kept barking. After all of that, I had a buddy of mine named Brett standing beside me, and he said, you think she stole them groceries? They wasn't a bag nowhere. She drove out and took every one of those groceries. I didn't know if I was had, if it was an act. He smelled like doo-doo, though. It happened. Sorry about the language, but is it just me? Bravo, Gina. If you can imagine that, we are the same.